Welcome, there we go, to another episode of the Maxi-Geek Show. Today is Friday, June 17th. This is episode number 23. So we're halfway through the year now. This has been a big week for the world of games. Obviously, there has been the not E3 that happened, over the last sort of 5 days, over the weekend just gone, and Monday and Tuesday. There was even some stuff today. There's another showcase next week, and there's another one in July, 2 more in July actually, another one in August. Rumored Nintendo Direct still to come, so there's still a lot happening in the world of video games. For obvious reasons, we are not going to discuss every single thing that was revealed or shown over the past 7 days, because we would be here for another 4 hours. And, I can't talk for 4 continuous hours. But we're going to go through some of the bigger ones. So we're going to get straight into it. We'll get through all the news, then we'll get into the forecast. But I wanted to talk about this morning. So at 8 o'clock this morning, Sydney time, it happened. It hasn't happened before, but it happened this morning. The streams were crossed. And by that, I mean that Square Enix hosted a Final Fantasy 7 25th anniversary stream, and Capcom hosted a Dragon's Dogma 10th anniversary stream. So the closest we ever came to this was, I think, 2018 for E3. It's 2018 to 2017, one of those. Square Enix had said, hey, we're doing our showcase at 9 o'clock on Tuesday morning. And then, like, a week later, Nintendo put out their normal thing, 9 o'clock Tuesday morning. And Square Enix went, oh, hang on, we'll change. So they went, an hour later. So it was kind of a weird scenario where, Square Enix ducked out of the way. Because that's Nintendo's time. Nintendo have always sort of done 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. Tuesday, Los Angeles time, I mean. There were two supposed to be at the same time, but somebody ducked out of the way. But this morning, that was not the case. And this morning, though, when we got into things, the events were very, very different. They were both around the same, about 10, 12 minutes in length each, but they were very different in terms of what they offered. The Dragon's Dogma stream confirmed that Dragon's Dogma 2 is in development. That's it. So we actually don't know a lot. We don't know the platforms, we don't know a release window, so we don't even know if it's next year, the year after, whatever. We don't know if it's PC only or PS5, or if it's, Switch only, or if it's a mobile only title. We don't know anything about platforms. The only thing we know for certain is that it is getting built on the RE engine. The RE engine is Capcom's internally developed engine that powered Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, and then obviously Resident Evil Village. It also does Monster Hunter Rise on Switch and PC, as well as Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection on all platforms. So it's just become their in-house development engine now. So for all their sort of big projects, they go into this release. The strange thing about the showcase or the presentation is essentially it was 10 minutes of why did we make Dragon's Dogma 1? If you're into the history of why this game was made, then it's something you should be watching. But sadly, it just wasn't that appealing, from a visual thing. So I had the Final Fantasy stream on one screen, and I had the Dragon Dogma showcase on another screen. And I was just, watching that one because they had subtitles on as well. I was just watching it, seeing if they actually were going to show anything. And occasionally they looked a few times, they thought, oh, we'll do this. And then it didn't happen. So it was a little strange that they'd done it that way for it. But hey, as I said, it is shown to be in development, but that is literally all we know about it. So, yeah. As you just said, it is 10 years since the series began. It is available on all the platforms now. So there is a it's backwards compatible on PS5 and Xbox Series X and S. Obviously, it's on PS4 and Xbox One. PC is there as well, and it is on Switch. All the versions, bar the Switch version, are on sale right now. And the Switch version was just on sale over the last couple of weeks, so they can't go into another sale, having just had a sale. So that's why it's not there now. But, it is very, very cool that they're doing that. Moving on to the other stream from this morning, the Final Fantasy stream, there were a few things for, the first the First Soldier, their mobile spin-off and all that. But the big thing that people wanted and the thing that they got was the next chapter of the Final Fantasy VII Remake. So Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is the full title for the next chapter in the Final Fantasy VII Remake saga. Now I say saga because there is actually 3 of them now. Somehow Square Enix have taken a game that takes about 12 hours to beat on a PlayStation 1 and they've blown it up into, you know, a 50-60 hour RPG across 3 releases. So, I mean, I don't begrudge them. This is Final Fantasy VII is their cash cow. You know, they don't have to do much with it. It is essentially a license to print money. During the showcase, they announced one of the big sword that Cloud has. You know, it sits on a stand, it's in an angle, and it's an alarm clock. And they want $200 for that thing, which is insane. But, you know, it's Final Fantasy VII, so they will sell it, I guarantee you. Details on this one are pretty light as well. We don't have a lot of information. We do know that it is, you know, the middle of a trilogy of games. As it is, its full title is now Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So, Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy VII Intergrade, that's still one sort of part of it. Rebirth is the second. Whether or not there's an Intergrade for Rebirth, you know, who knows. But there'll be a third release, but that does not have a name at this point. They do have a trailer, and I will put the story in the chat so you can read it. So you can watch the trailer. It's very, very short. It just shows Cloud and Sephiroth walking, you know, through a bit of a wasteland with some dialogue. As part of the announcement, though, the creative director for the series, Tetsuya Nomura, the Rebirth director, Naoki Hamaguchi, and the producer of Rebirth, Yoshinori Kitase, released various statements, which are also in the article, so if you want to have a read of those, they're there. As I said, details are very, very light on it. We don't even know the platforms. There's you always say here, the producer. So there's Remake, which is part 1, Rebirth, which is part 2. I don't know. Reimagined somehow making a third game from this is the third one. We do know that it is aiming for a winter 2023 release, so we're looking at least sort of 18 months away, if not a little bit longer. The big thing is that by that point, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S will be 3 years old. So I don't know if we'll see them bringing the game to PS4 at that point. They may commit to just making it a purely next-gen title. The screenshots that they've revealed are just taken from the trailer. There's no difference here. You can actually find this exact same moment in the trailer. It doesn't look all that different. It looks like the engine's the same, the character models are the same, which is probably helping them with their development. But yeah, so it's very, very cool that they're continuing to make the games, because obviously Remake did sell exceptionally well. And they're not wasting any time in dragging that out in terms of development. The other big game that was announced during the showcase this morning was Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion. And apart from it being a mouthful of a name, because it's a Square Enix based title, aligned with Final Fantasy, so it has to be. It is the full remake of the 2007, Crisis Core title from PlayStation 2. So much like, good job, Square Enix. Much like they did with, the PlayStation 1 Final Fantasy VII to the PS4 version. So this is what the game originally looked like back on the PS2. So very, very similar to, Final Fantasy X at the time, things like that. And this is what the new version is looking like. So you can see, the face shape is slightly different on this guy. The main protagonist, he's slightly wider. So it's very, very cool. We do have some character art for Aerith, Sephiroth, Zack, things like that, and then just a bunch of screenshots. Now, interestingly, for this one, the game is coming out later this year, and it is coming to all platforms. So that is PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and PC, like Final Fantasy VII Remake, but joining it is Xbox One, Xbox Series, S and X, and PlayStation 5. So the game is actually going to hit all platforms this holiday season. Square Enix have said winter 2023 for the Northern Hemisphere, which for us means summer 2023. So that is obviously December, because we don't have, summer months outside of December in 2023. So, but yeah, it is very exciting stuff that, we have another game there for it. Some people expected this to come, some people didn't expect it to come, but, it's there now. Oh. All right, moving on to the world of Capcom. Now, we're not going to get into too much from Capcom, because there are some things that they showed off that are pretty cool, and some that are a bit, okay, cool, whatever. Early this week, they hosted the Capcom Showcase, which it was lagging the whole time. The actual stream was not that great. The quality of it was horrible, but the content was pretty good. So we got another look at Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, the expansion that releases at the end of this month. Cool, happy to see that. We got a brief new look at Resident Evil 4 Remake, which is coming out next March for, various platforms. And we got the reveal that Resident Evil 2, 3, and 7, the two remakes and 7, were now available for PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC as the enhanced versions. Obviously, the PC version has had some issues on those various releases with things like ray tracing, so they have re-enabled the older versions now. So if you do, they were free upgrades for all platforms. So if you owned the games on a PS4 or the PC or Xbox One, you could upgrade to the new versions for free. But the switch on PC was that the new versions, the enhanced versions, would only be available going forward. But there've been some issues with the quality of those, so they've rolled that back for now while they work on it. But in terms of other things that they showed off, we got some more information about Exoprimal. Now, I say more information. This isn't the exact thing that they showed off the other day. This is actual, extended gameplay that they delivered. So let me just throw this on here, and I'll just jump in for it. So Exoprimal is a 5-player cooperative multiplayer experience. It's not going to... You can't avoid it, but it looks a whole lot like Anthem. Robot suits and, running around the world together, which does look very, very cool, but it isn't exactly the same thing. So what the game is that there is an AI called Leviathan, who you're seeing on the chat there talking. Leviathan is an artificial intelligence that believes that humanity is flawed, and in order for it to survive, it must evolve, because that's all AIs ever do when they go rogue. What it has decided is that because the best way for humanity to, evolve is to enter into fights against countless numbers of enemies. So what they've done is, instead of just saying it's going to be, waves and waves of enemies or what have you, human enemies, the Leviathan AI somehow has the ability to pull dinosaurs in from various points throughout time. And contrary to what Jurassic Park would have you believe, not all the dinosaurs in that movie are from the same time period. So that's sort of the premise on how and why you're constantly replaying missions. Is because Leviathan is testing you over and over again to try and see how your capability of evolution can stack up. So that's the reason why you've got all these things. There are story-based missions. It's not story-based missions, I suppose is the wrong word, but there are story-adjacent missions that when you complete them, you'll learn a little bit more about the various events happening in the world. Now, you may have just noticed there were these red outlines of player characters. That is the opposing team. So in one of the modes, there is 2 teams essentially, and you're fighting to try and get the best score, the best everything for your team, beating out the other team. So you can see on the top bar there, the blue team, which is the one we're watching, how that's got 3 splats to go, but the red team's only got 2 on the right. So yeah. It looks I'm not convinced on this one. I think it's going to be a very shallow game. If you're a multiplayer fan, this could be the perfect thing for you. But the problem that I have with these sort of multiplayer looping games where there's no real reward if you're just doing the same thing over and over again in the same locations over and over again, is that each and every time you, get stuck into these things, you have to continually play them in order to progress. And it's not like you're personally learning more skills and all that sort of stuff. You're learning additional skills based on, how much effort you put in and then unlocking levels and things like that. So it's not like Street Fighter where practice makes perfect. Here it's the same missions over and over again. But, because you're against giant dinosaurs, you know what I mean? So it's yeah, I don't know. It's very weird, and I can't see it, doing well. But that being said, they haven't even entered their alpha, which they're hosting a few on PC in late July and then in August. So various parts of the world. There's a US and Canada only one for the first alpha. Then there's a few hours worth of testing for the second one, and there's like a 24-hour period for the third one. So this is so that Capcom can test individual sort of, very specific region, then, for a dedicated period of time, get everyone on over for a few hours, and then over the period of 24 hours, see how everything goes for a day. As I said, I'm very much a fan of dinosaurs, so any game where I can, play and there are dinosaurs in there, I'm very, very on board with that. I just don't believe it's going to be the hit that they think or hope it will be. Not to say it will be bad, I just don't think it's going to live up to the expectations that they have for it. Right, moving on from dinosaurs, let's talk werewolves, specifically Resident Evil Village. So as part of the Capcom showcase, they finally revealed details about the DLC that was promised for Village, including when it will be available. So if you already own the game, the Village, the update that includes Shadows of Rose, which is the story expansion, the Mercenaries update, and the ability to play the entire game in third person, so you're no longer locked to the first person perspective, they will be available in October. The reason why I say if you already own the game is because when this releases in October, they will also be releasing the Resident Evil Village Gold Edition, which is basically the game with all the updates and all the new DLC to come. So if we have a look here at these screens that were provided by Capcom, you can see here, now you can actually see Ethan. So he's not just a pair of hands, right? You can actually get into and explore the world. This is very much something that I'm looking forward to, because horror games in first person just never feel right, because they always seem to slow things down. In a horror situation, people are going to run faster, they're going to turn faster, right? They're going to react in different ways. But horror games in first person tend to slow everything down in order to build up the suspense a little bit more, which, creative decisions and whatnot, but it just doesn't appeal to me that way. So being able to play this game in third person, I'm very much excited for. The other big addition is the Mercenaries mode, which is now available already inside of Village. We'll be getting an update. And one of the big updates is it will let you play, I'm not sure why all those images duplicated, but it'll let you play as Chris, Lady Dimitrescu, or I've forgotten his name now. I'm pretty sure I had it up here. Heisenberg. There you go. So you'll be able to play as those three. And then finally, as I said, the Shadows of Rose expansion will let you play as Rose. She comes in contact with a mysterious object that basically pulls her into what they call the Megamite, Megamycete, whatever they call it. And it's basically a way for them to stitch together various parts of Resident Evil Village and other scenarios to give players sort of not a best all feature, but sort of a very compacted experience. All the while for Rose trying to work out how she has these powers and what they mean for her in the long run. She considers her abilities to be a curse, and because they are a curse, she doesn't like them. So, yeah, lots of Resident Evil stuff during the week. As I said, the 2, 3, and 7 are now available on next-gen platforms. Resident Evil Reverse, which is Capcom's latest attempt at a multiplayer version of Resident Evil, is set to release on October 30, the same day that all that DLC is coming out. I've said October 30, but I don't think it is October 30. Let me double check that one. Strangely enough, I didn't put it in the story. But yeah, so whenever the Gold Edition comes out, that's when all the Resident Evil Reverse will also release. Again, the only real problem with Reverse is that it's their third attempt at a multiplayer Resident Evil game. They didn't do well with the first one. They did even worse with the second one. So the old saying, third time's the charm, is a good hope to have, but we'll just have to wait and see about how that plays out. And speaking of playing out, Overwatch 2 got a bunch of new information this morning via a dedicated stream from Blizzard. So specifically, we are talking about the big changes coming to Overwatch 2 now that the game is going into free-to-play and early access this October. Before we get into all that, though, there is a beta scheduled to take place next month across PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. So Switch fans, unfortunately, do not get to take part in the beta, but the full game, or the early access game release, will be there for them in October. What is going to be different about this one is that Overwatch 2 will no longer have loot crates. So there's no loot boxes. There's none of that stuff that was in Overwatch 1. Instead, much like every other multiplayer online game that exists today, they're going to a season pass. So there will be a season pass, but for this one, the seasons run for 9 weeks. So the first season begins on October 5th, when the game is available here in Australia to play. Pre-download may be a few days early, like they usually are with Blizzard games, but actual server activation won't take place until the 5th of October. But then you'll get 9 weeks of Season 1, and then Season 2 will commence. Now, part of the thing this morning was that they did give us more information about the Junker Queen, who is the new one of the new heroes coming. And as well, as I said, there's the Wasteland animated short. So Season 1 comes with 3 heroes. So Sojourn is one we've seen before. Junker Queen is the new one. And there's a new support hero that they haven't detailed yet. 6 new maps are coming. So Toronto, New York, Rome, Monte Carlo, Portugal, and Rio. And then there's the new game mode Push, which is, somewhat similar to a mode that's already in Overwatch 1. Alongside that, we'll just come down here. So it's a new battle path. There's skins, this is the game mode and all that sort of stuff. Season 2 begins on December 6th. And there'll be another new hero, another new map, more skins, new battle pass, all that sort of stuff. And then going into 2023 and beyond, there'll be more seasons, which will include all that sort of stuff again. The big thing, though, is that the game is fully cross-play. So if you have PC and your friend has an Xbox, or you're on PS4 and your mate has a PS5, you can still play together. But the game now supports cross-progression. So if you have, a PC for, you have a massive PC gaming rig and you love playing games there, but you travel a fair bit. Maybe you go to and from, somewhere on the train or a bus or something every day, and you want to play on the Switch. As long as you have mobile internet, you can do that. And any progress you make on the Switch version would carry back across to the PC when you get home, and then from the PC to the Switch when you leave in the morning, so to speak. So that's all there as well. The interesting thing, here's a couple of bits of concept art for some of the skin themes that they've got going on. The interesting thing, though, with this is the fact that it is an early access release. So this isn't news. This was announced during the Xbox and Bethesda game showcase earlier in the week. But it is interesting that in addition to it being an early access game, they're doing what they say is going to be a pretty substantial beta. Mostly because it's one of those things where it's like the game is very much a product of its experience. Obviously, they're going to be making changes throughout development, regardless if it's early access or not, because a game like Overwatch 2 is going to be based on player feedback. What is interesting, though, is on October 4th, the Legendary Edition of Overwatch, so the original game, will no longer be available for sale. They're taking that offline to say, hey, no, sorry, you can't play this anymore. Because all the content from that is going to be in Overwatch 2. And with Overwatch 2 being free to play, Blizzard has basically said, hey, look, there's no point in us saying, hey, pay $50, $60 for this version of the game, or get it all for free in this other version of the game, which has additional content. So makes no sense there. There is a they call it a watch point pack, which is the not a booster kit essentially, but it's a season battle pass for the first season, some skins and some bits and pieces and some in-game currency to buy additional cosmetic items. That also gets you Overwatch 1 if you don't already have it, so that's all there as well. I know someone who's a devout Overwatch player. He's not happy with Overwatch 2 at the moment. He said he just didn't enjoy the first beta. So hopefully the second beta, helps alleviate some concerns. Obviously, the game being free to play means that everyone can jump in and not have to worry about losing any money to the thing if they don't like the game in the long run. Again, I don't have a lot of time for multiplayer games because of what I do here, but I've always liked the visuals of Overwatch, but I didn't like the gameplay of it. It just never appealed to me. It was like a shooter in hopes and wishes only. I'm very much a Counter-Strike, Battlefield sort of shooter fan, and Overwatch just didn't really hit those right notes for me. Speaking of notes, the tune has changed for Sony Pictures and Spider-Man because Spider-Man is now on Disney+. So there we go. Today, the Spider-Man movies starring Tobey Maguire, so Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3, the Amazing Spider-Man movies with Andrew Garfield, and Spider-Man Homecoming are all available on Disney+, which is fantastic news for people who wanted to watch all the MCU movies, in the one spot. They couldn't do that because Netflix had a distribution deal with Sony Pictures to bring their content to Netflix. That deal expired last year. The deal itself didn't expire, but the contract was up, early this year, and they opted not to renew it because Disney went to them and said, hey, look, why don't you bring your stuff to our platform? In addition to the Spider-Man movies, with those three, Venom with Tom Hardy, and Spider-Man Enter the Multiverse. Into the Multiverse? The animated one. That is now available as well today on Disney+. But they're not the only ones. So going forward, Sony Pictures, Sony movies and Sony TV shows will also be available on Disney+. There's no list on what that is. But I mean, so the Men in Black movies are Sony Pictures. Uncharted is a Sony picture. So there's a few other things alongside it that could be there. As I said, Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3 with Tobey Maguire, Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, Homecoming, Into the Spider-Verse, and Venom. They're the ones that are, they've confirmed today that are there. I'm now just curious about Sony Pictures and what other things that they have. So Sony Pictures used to be called Columbia Pictures before they got bought out by Sony many, many years ago. There's so many things. Here we are, film series. Yeah, I don't think we need to worry about the Three Stooges from 1934, but sure, we'll go with that. Rambo, Look Who's Talking, City Slickers, some Terminator stuff. Terminator is more aligned with Universal these days, but that's there. RoboCop on Disney Plus would be quite hilarious. Obviously Jumanji, and the reboots of those. Charlie's Angels, SWAT. Open Seasons, that's one of the Sony Pictures animation things. Who else was Sony Pictures? They did, I think they were robots back in the day. Surf's Up, Open Season, Clayton with a Chance of Meatballs, The Smurfs, the Hotel Transylvania series, Goosebumps. Obviously, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is one of them as well. Mitchell's vs. the Machine is one of them, but that was sort of touted as a Netflix exclusive. So, yeah, there's a few things there. And as I said, like, it's not all the movies are coming or all the TV shows are coming, because there is a vast library of content. But there's going to be a selection of it going forward, which is very cool. I think we're not. Disney still has a lot of things they've not added to the service, and they could obviously. In the US they bundle Disney. Sorry, they don't bundle. It's not forced, but there is a bundle that is Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN, or ESPN Plus is what they call it over there for that. We don't need that here, because everything that is Hulu original, that's not already subcontracted out. Say The Handmaid's Tale. I think it's a Foxtel thing here, it's a Binge thing, one of those two. Anything that's Hulu original, so the upcoming Prey, which is the Predator sort of prequel set back during the time of Native America, that is coming to Disney Plus here as part of Star. So Star is the Hulu arm, essentially, or the adult arm of Disney, for Disney Plus. In India, Star is a big brand there, but in India they also do sports. They do live sports as part of Star. They just lost out on getting the cricket on there as well, which is a big deal for them. They wanted that, they didn't get it. But the ESPN thing is, all the sports that they show on ESPN, you can get that now as part of your bundle package. For here, that would be like having Disney Plus and say KO, right? So that's sort of what that sort of bundle equates to. It is very, very cool that they're doing it though. So, it's something to look forward to see what else is coming from Sony for Disney Plus. Again, if they do release everything, it will be over time. It's not going to be a day one, here's everything we've ever made, so to speak. Some content is just not suitable to be aired anymore because of the content contained within. Disney have one very specific example. People like to try that all the time with Song of the South. So they're obviously going to go through it, and some of the content, some of the footage may not be digitized. It may not be in a state where it can be digitized easily. So they have to balance all those sort of things out. So yeah, so we will get some stuff, but not necessarily everything. Thankfully, the people making those decisions are good people and not Shodan. Because during the week we also got a new gameplay trailer for the remaster, or the remake I should say, of System Shock. So System Shock is essentially an industry icon of a game. The game itself released in 1994, so it is quite a number of years old now. It's almost 30 years. What is interesting about the series itself is that System Shock 2, they then sort of led a little into Deus Ex. Deus Ex led into Thief. So we're sort of at this point where if you've played a modern video game, there's probably something that in that game that ties back to System Shock. So what you can see here is obviously the original look from 1994 was very pixelated, very stylized for its day, and the team at Night Dive Studios who are remaking it have sort of kept a visual similarity, but it's not pixelized, it's not the same, but they've still done enough with the visuals to sort of make it feel like it is that, which I think is very, very cool. They've done a fantastic job with that visual style. Obviously the big thing here though is Shodan. Again, a system AI who thinks they know better than humans has taken over and rah. What is interesting though, if you hear the name Night Dive Studios and you're like, that sounds familiar to me. Night Dive Studios is the folks that tend to do a lot of ports of older games, specifically things like Doom 64, what else did they do? They did the Turok games, Shadow Man, and a few others. So, you know, they built an engine that basically lets them bring old games to modern platforms, but keeping them looking as they did. So they're not having to remake the game to get it across. They basically port it into their KEX engine, KEX, and then that engine can basically export it to the platform of choice. So yeah, you know, again, the trailer's very, very cool. There is some audio that you can go back and watch and listen to that. It's basically just Showdown giving you a grief for being human, essentially. Speaking of grief for being humans, Diablo 4 finally got gameplay for consoles during the week. Specifically, we got the reveal that the Necromancer is the 5th and final class coming to the game, and we also then got gameplay footage of Diablo 4 running on an Xbox Series X. Obviously, you know, Microsoft is buying up Activision Blizzard, or specifically Xbox is buying up Activision Blizzard. And much like when they announced the Bethesda deal, many people thought that, you know, we would see something from them during the show last year. You know, just it'd be the Xbox show, here's some Bethesda games. They called it officially the Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase last year, and again this year. And since the acquisition deal was announced, it's not yet complete, but since it was announced, we've seen a bit more stuff from, you know, Activision, specifically Blizzard, coming back to Xbox, because the man in charge of all the Diablo content at Blizzard is Rod Ferguson, who was formerly of the Coalition, led the team there doing Gears of War, and Mike Ybarra, who's the head of Blizzard after the former head stepped away after the allegations surfaced late last year. He was at Xbox for many, many, many years, so there's a big sort of relationship between Xbox and now Blizzard employees. So the actual thinking, let me skip through the cinematic, because as much as that fun as that is to watch, oh, that is all just cinematic. That's not what I wanted. There it is. I'll just jump into the video here. So the big thing with this one is that it is they're technically calling it an open world. Diablo 3 had an open world in the sense that the areas were very, very large, but there were some narrow corridors that would load up into other areas, which is a very traditional game design mechanic. We've also now seen it happen in years past, where, you know, it may be like a slow fade to black when you're going through a doorway or something, and a slow fade out when you're in the next area. So they are calling it an open world. They're saying it is going to be a fully open world. That's all it's going to be. You know, how much that actually turns out to be true, we'll have to wait and see. The Necromancer obviously is a big deal for it. Here in the footage, if you're watching, the show, we can see what one of the world bosses. The world boss sort of thing really kicked up with with Destiny. You'll be off doing your own thing, and then all of a sudden a world boss will appear, and 15, 16 people will have to come running up to help you take down this guy. So that very much is going to be happening here. So you can play completely on your own, completely solo, just enjoying the many hours of content that the developers are putting into it. Or you can team up with friends and run through dungeons and clear towns. The other thing too is that as you start clearing out parts of the world that are suffering from the blight, or whatever they call it, they will be cleansed, and a cleansed area could bring people together to form a new village, to start a new town. Or once you've cleaned out an area, it could let loose some sort of little catastrophe, things falling down or whatever, and then you get just a horde of other creatures coming in, which then turns into the ground collapsing and a doorway to a forgotten ruin coming in there. So there's definitely a lot going on for this game. There's a bunch of screenshots here as well. It is a 2023 game. The big thing with the Xbox Showcase, or the Xbox and Bethesda Games Showcase, as it's officially called, is that everything they showed is essentially supposed to be out by, say, the 10th of June next year. So that's Redfall, Starfield, Forza Motorsport, Diablo 4. We already knew Diablo 4 wasn't going to be out until sometime after April 1st, 2023. Blizzard confirmed that earlier in the year. They said it wouldn't release in their next fiscal year, and their fiscal year starts on April 1st. So we will see more of it throughout this year. We'll probably get a beta later in the year or probably early next year. But the actual game release itself probably won't happen until maybe mid-April, late April at the earliest. But, that could change. They may be further along in development. They may have fixed up some issues that they thought were going to take a lot longer, but ended up didn't. So, who knows. But yeah, so that's coming as well. That looks very, very cool. Oh, there's so much news from the Xbox showcase, it's ridiculous. But moving on to another interesting game reveal, and that is that Minecraft is getting a new game. So Minecraft Legends is an all-new strategy game. It's not a strategy like, Civilization's a strategy game or Age of Empires. It's an action strategy game. What is interesting, this is now the 4th Minecraft game. So obviously we've got original Minecraft, and it's very many versions on consoles and PC. Then there was Minecraft Story, which was done by Telltale Games. There was 2 seasons of that. And then we obviously had Minecraft Dungeons released a couple of years ago. So this is the 4th main Minecraft spin-off. And this is actually being developed by Blackbird Interactive. And Blackbird Interactive, they're not a big name. Like, people don't know the name outside of the niche sort of genre that they work in. But the people that do know the name, get excited for a very good reason. So Blackbird Interactive, they spun up after, working at various other RTS sort of based developers. And the first game they did, or they brought back, was Homeworld 2. So they sort of remastered that and, rejiggered bits and pieces and brought that back out. And then basically the day after that game launched, they said, hey, we're making Homeworld 3. And they've been at that for a few years now, and people went sort of, oh, okay, these guys, they know what they're doing. Homeworld 2 is pretty good. Homeworld 3 should be, even better. What they then did for the sort of, other things they're working on is that Smilegate, the people that do Crossfire, they went to Blackbird and said, hey, we want to make this game inside the Crossfire universe. We think you guys are going to be a perfect fit. So here's what we want you to do. So they're also doing that, and that's now in early access, and that is Crossfire Legion is what its full name is. So yeah, it's very, very cool that they're doing it. So they definitely know their strategy games. The problem is we just don't know anything about this. The trailer itself, unfortunately, is a mess. So let me skip to the actual gameplay part of it. So the trailer is 2 minutes long, and we only get like 20 seconds of gameplay. So it's very much, as I said, it's very much an action style. So you're not, it's not an isometric top-down thing. You're not, God overlooking everyone. But it very much looks like Minecraft, except everything's got sort of a thicker black line around it, which is a little like Smash Brothers from the 3DS. But it also, it's more combat heavy. Which is nothing, Minecraft Dungeons was combat heavy, but this seems to be taking it to sort of a new heights. What is interesting is, even though this trailer is just for the Xbox and PC versions of the game, it is coming to PC, PS4, PS5 and Switch as well in 2023. So yeah, it could be fun. People were a bit back and forth on Dungeons, but it proved itself to be quite a worthwhile experience. So yeah, that is something to look forward to next year. Something a little closer to home, a little closer in terms of release dates, is Forza Horizon 5's Hot Wheels DLC. So Forza Horizon 5 released last November. It released into Game Pass. They've had, they love touting 20 million players. Xbox really needs to work on that message, because that is a bad way of saying things. They did it with Sea of Thieves. They said 30 million players. It's like, yes, I played Sea of Thieves when it launched. I played it for review, played it for about 6 months, and then I haven't touched it since, because it just wasn't good. They've obviously done a lot of work to Sea of Thieves, and they've changed it, but they still count me as a player, even though I haven't played it in years. So yeah, they really need, when they say 20 million players, it's like 20 million people have played it. doesn't mean 20 million people are actively playing it. So just sort of always take those numbers with a grain of salt. But back to the actual DLC. The Hot Wheels expansion is the second time that Hot Wheels is being included into the series. Obviously, the first was during Forza Horizon 3. It was one of the 2 expansions there. The first one was Blizzard Mountain, which was a lot of snow, and then Hot Wheels was the second one. I'll be honest, I didn't want more Hot Wheels. I wasn't a big fan of the Hot Wheels DLC the first time. The big appeal for Forza is that, you'll be driving down a road and you'll see something off to your side and you'll just go, cool, hook a turn and just start bashing through the field and through fences and whatnot to go to it. Here, as you can see from one of these Hot Wheels cars that they've blown up to a full-size thing, it's on a track. If you can't turn left because there's a rail that runs down alongside all the track. So once you're on a track, you're either going to go in the direction you were going initially, or you're going to stop, turn around, and go back the other way. There obviously are exceptions. When you get into, like this thing here, it's a sort of splitter. That's a magnetic piece of track. There is there's like a hub area, which is a giant sort of suspension piece. There's a jump. Woo, jumps are fun. But once you're up here in the mountains here, if you go up this way to the loop, you're in that loop. You've got to go all the way around, come back around. You can't just go, well, I want to go down here and just drive off the side. So it's sort of anti-Horizon in a way, because it goes against everything that Horizon, has been about. It's fun driving on the tracks and everything, but it's like they're taking away from the exploration that Horizon's really sort of come to know or come to emphasize as being a big thing for them. It's very, very cool. The actual expansion is coming out on July 19th for both, for Xbox One, Series X and S, and PC via the Xbox app and Steam. It isn't free, obviously. Even if you have Game Pass, it's not free. You can buy it individually when it releases, or you can buy the what do they call it? I put it in here somewhere. There was another story that I did. It's called like the Premium Pass or Season Pass, one of the discounted bundles. You can buy that now, and then once it's available for preload, which I think it actually is now, it'll preload and then it'll unlock when it goes live. But yeah, so that's coming soon. Obviously, this is sort of a break in tradition for them, if you will. The first game to have DLC was Horizon 2, and that first expansion was Storm Island. Storm Island was very focused on weather, like on heavy rain and storms. Obviously 3 had Blizzard Mountain, which was obviously snow and ice, and then 4 was Fortune Island, I think it was called, and it was very much a sort of combination of all the weathers up to that point, because they really sort of overhauled the weather system for Horizon 4. So I do wonder, why they've gone, broken away from the weather trend. But we already have dust storms in Horizon 5. Depending on the season, you've already got, rain and thunder and such. So maybe this was just something different, because they couldn't think of a good weather thing. Who knows? As I said, July 19 is when it'll be available. But we'll just have to wait and see about it being any good. Waiting and seeing, though, for mainline Forza is going to take a little while longer, because after being officially announced at the Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase, it was given a release date of autumn 2023. So I say this was announced at the showcase. It was announced like 3 years ago that it was coming, but this is the first time we've ever actually seen the game outside of a few little, still images that they've delivered. What is very, very interesting about Motorsport is that it's not numbered. So this is technically the 8th Motorsport title. They had obviously Forza Motorsport Original back on the Xbox 360. Then 2, 3, and 4 on Xbox One, Xbox 360. Sorry. Then 5, 6, and 7 on the Xbox One. Actually, I think the original Forza was on Xbox Original. I'll have to look that up. But anyway, so this is the 8th game in the series, but it's losing the thing. It's basically a reboot of the series. One of the big things for this one is, they've rebuilt everything from the ground up. So while we've had 2 Horizon games in the same time between Motorsports, their team have not been idle. One thing that most people think, they're both called Forza, so they're car games, right? They do share technology. Turn 10 Studios still help development of Playground Games Horizon series, because they generally use the engine that Turn 10 have developed. So the engine essentially is tweaked to go for realism in one, arcade in another. The Motorsport engine going forward, it is a completely different beast. So just play this trailer here because it does look stunning. So one of the big things for this one is that in Horizon 5, ray tracing was only available in the Forza Vista mode, which is when you're looking at your car in the garage. In Motorsport, ray tracing is on all the time. So as you're careening around the track, you see the reflection there in the car, from other cars, the track surface, things off the track. There you see another one. So this car game is going to offer real-time ray tracing at 60 FPS all the time. This is the first game that's really doing that. We've seen it before with games that go, oh yes, you can have ray tracing. It looks fantastic with ray tracing turned on. But if you want that, it's only at 1080p or only at 30 frames. There's always a caveat to these things. Whether or not this game is 4K 60 with ray tracing, we don't know. This trailer is apparently, captured in 4K, but they've not said if it's 4K 60 with ray tracing. I suspect it probably isn't. As much as Xbox love touting, how powerful the console is, they've not managed to hit that milestone of having it at 60 frames a second, 4K resolution, and RTX on for all game, real-time ray tracing on for everything. So they released a bunch of screens for it. We only know one track, and that's Maple Valley, which is from the original game. This is one of the things that sort of has irked me about this series and Gran Turismo and Project Cars and all the other realistic races that come out, is they always stick to the same courses. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if that's Laguna Seca. I don't think it is. I think the turns are a little too wide. This is obviously set in Japan. You can see the writing there. But they always seem to be, it's the same 10 courses, same 15 tracks, in the same things. It was a number of years ago where I reviewed Project Cars 2. Sorry, I reviewed GT Sport, and then somebody was going to do Project Cars 2 for me, but they couldn't do it, so I ended up picking that one up. So I did GT Sport, Project Cars 2, and then Forza Motorsport 7 in a 7-week period. And you honestly don't realize how similar these games are until you play them back to back. It's the same cars, the same car makers, the same car types, the same colors for the cars, the same sponsors for the cars. It's the same tracks, it's the same weather. So I think with Motorsport 7, they had a few tracks, like one was in Dubai. I think Dubai was 7. And you're out in the desert, and there was sand on the road and everything. And I said, this is the track that makes this game worth playing, right? These original tracks. The Grid series, as much as I love the Grid series, they tend to mess up their track selection because they keep using the same tracks. You go to Yokohama, okay, it's the drifting course around the shipping, around the docks. You go to San Francisco, there's generally big straights and 90-degree turns up and down hills of San Francisco. So they always do the same tracks, the same layouts, the same stuff. It's the same for that series. And these realistic racing games are always the same as well. It's the same stuff over and over and over again. Now, this is not a criticism to these games, right? If you only play Forza Motorsport, right, when they were releasing them every 2 years, right, 2 years between 6 and 7, a lot of stuff changes. They get new track data to make the tracks feel, tighter or more responsive compared to, what they were the year before. The cars handled differently. There's a different selection of cars, all that sort of stuff. So things do change. But, as I said, I mentioned Laguna Seca before. Laguna Seca is an iconic raceway in California. I'm pretty sure Laguna Seca is in almost every realistic racing game around. Like if I were to look up the track list or look up how, what games does Laguna Seca appear in, it would be in everything. Which I'll do that right now. What games does Laguna Seca Raceway appear in? So GT7 it's in. Apparently, according to Giant Bomb, it's GT7, which is fine. Forza Motorsport, which is next year, which is the one we're talking about, that is apparently coming out. Assetto Corsa Competizione, which just released its next-gen versions a couple of months ago. It came out back in 2019 for PC and consoles soon after. That's there. It's in the Crew, it's in GT Sport, it's in Forza Motorsport 7, 6, Project Cars, the original, and it goes on and on and on. Now, again, I'm not saying that the track itself isn't fantastic. I enjoy Laguna Seca. It's a very complicated track. It does offer a lot, more. Looking at the list, Forza Motorsport 5, 4, Need for Speed Shift, MotoGP, Forza Motorsport 2, the original Motorsport, V8 Supercars, TOCA Race Driver, Gran Turismo 3 is the first, apparently, time that track appeared. But that track appearing in every single game doesn't make it, interesting if you're playing the same series and you're playing the same tracks. So that's why Maple Valley, the reveal track was so spectacular, because it was an original track. So I'm hoping that they do a lot more original tracks. Turn 10 are a studio that love their cars. They know exactly what they're doing when they make, these car games, because they are, amazingly, passionate about cars in real life. So making games for cars is a no-brainer for them. Turn 10 have worked with car companies to help, manufacture cars. They do simulations for them and everything. So they definitely know what they're doing. Same with Polyphony Digital, out from Japan, the makers of Gran Turismo. The Nissan GTR a number of years ago, the entire in-car dash was designed by Polyphony Digital, because they knew, they knew how to make a layout, because they've spent years doing it in games. And now that cars are having digitized screens, rather than Nissan say, hey, let's try and work out a way to do this, they went to Polyphony and said, hey, you guys know what you're doing, come do it for us. Because they had that relationship. So these folks know exactly what they're doing with cars. I just wish they had more fun with the tracks, and hopefully that happens with motorsport. But it's going to be quite a while until we find out more about that, because it is a few months away. It's not coming out until next year at some time. But again, I'm very much a fan of the motorsport series. It's just a little more approachable for me than Gran Turismo. That being said, Horizon has obviously taken over. Horizon is my favorite of the two. Technically there's 3 Forza games, because it was Street, but let's face it, that wasn't really a car game. That was a button pressing simulator. But yeah, there's definitely a lot more we can see for that one. We just have to wait until next year. Speaking of next year though, we got our first gameplay look for Redfall. So Redfall was announced at the Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase 2021. It was supposed to release sometime in the summer months in North America this year, which for us was winter, but a few weeks ago they did delay it until early 2023, which was news. It was not unexpected. The game was 11 months, 10 and a half to 11 months between announcement and apparent early release, and we hadn't seen anything on it. We had that what I like to call an atmosphere trailer, where they're like telling you a story, showing you characters and setting up things, but they don't show you anything that's actually going to be in the game. Obviously we saw powers and such, but seeing those things doesn't necessarily mean they'll translate to being an easy thing to achieve in game. That being said, they did kick off the showcase this year with the Redfall gameplay trailer. It is a very bloody thing, so I'm not going to play it here, but I will post the story in the chat so you can check on it in your own time. The big thing with this is a lot of people have seen it and gone, okay, it's like Back 4 Blood or Left 4 Dead. It's, a 4-player game, but this time instead of zombies or, deformed, mutated humans, it's vampires. It's very much not that. Even though it is, it can be a 4-player co-op game, it is not forced 4-player. You can play it entirely solo if you'd prefer. But it is definitely something you can look into. I will actually play this thing because I want to show... there was a very, very, very brief look at the... menu. So yeah, the whole thing can be played completely solo, or it can be played with friends. Interestingly, when you're playing, there we go. If you're playing with a friend and your friend is the host, you can level up, earn new weapons and things like that. But the story progress does not carry. So if I were playing from the start, I had started a game, got halfway through, somebody joined in, said, "Hey, can I play with you?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, here you come." If it was me and they joined my game, they played 3-4 hours, whatever, got a few guns, then they moved off to say, "Hey, I'm going to do my own thing." When they came back to the game, unless they joined my session again, they would have to start from wherever they got up to in their story. So that is a little weird. I get why they've done it. It's to help make sure people aren't jumping around story-wise. But it is a little weird that they've done it that way. The interesting thing here, as you can see in the thing, the guns have the color schemes. Purple is good, green is okay, blue is white is average, stuff like that. But there are also skills. If I play just quickly, so here you see the stats for things, damage and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, we're off that already. So it doesn't play like Back 4 Blood in that sense, because Back 4 Blood doesn't offer anything like that. But at the same time, as I said, because it's not forced co-op, whereas Back 4 Blood really requires you to play with people in order to unlock content and experience it all. You can play Redfall entirely solo. You do not have to play with friends or randoms online. You can play on your own, and you'll get the same story, the same gameplay and everything on your own. The only thing so far that I've seen that I don't like is that the menu has that bullshit circular cursor that goes over the screen, which if I'm on a computer makes sense because it's tied to my mouse. On consoles with analog sticks, that just never works. It's not worked since Destiny pushed it in there. It hasn't worked with Assassin's Creed since they've started using it. Hasn't worked with, didn't work with CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk 2077. They thankfully let you use like the D-pad to flick around as well. Most people that push these in just go, no, you have to use the stick as a digital cursor. So yeah, that does look very, very cool. As I said, do watch the gameplay trailer. They do show off a lot more in it. Especially they introduce the 4 characters, the abilities that they have, it looks cool. We should probably learn more about that later in the year. Xbox like to try and do something later in the year. Years and years ago, they used to call it like XO3 or XO5 or XO7. Now they just call it FanFest. We did have a FanFest event for this one here in Australia. It was down in Melbourne at the Fortress, which was the gaming arena inside the Melbourne CBD. They have not announced anything else yet for this year, but they try to do an additional thing somewhere in the world later in the year. I think last year they did it, or the last one they did, I should say, I believe was in Mexico. So they always try and do something, and share the love around the place. So, keep an eye out for that. Speaking of things that you didn't expect to keep an eye out for, but did show up anyway, was Silksong. Hollow Knight Silksong was the second game shown off during the Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase, which is very, very, very cool because this is the first time that many people had seen the game in almost 3 years. So Silksong was meant to be sort of a mini expansion to Hollow Knight. It was a Kickstarter goal. It, however, grew beyond the initial, the one-pager The one pager being, you know, on one piece of A4 paper, this is what we're going to deliver. It grew past that to become its own full, you know, game. It did show up at PAX Australia 2019. And so it was one of the last, you know, shows before everything shut down. And, you know, I played it there. A bunch of people I know played it there. Everyone sort of loved it. And everyone was like, oh, great, cool, we got to play this now. So obviously you're close to release. And then Team Cherry, who are the developers of the series, they just kind of went radio silent on it. So it popping up really surprised a lot of people. Not because it popped up. I mean, obviously, because it popped up, because we hadn't heard anything for a long time. But more that it popped up with Xbox. And the reason why is that whenever it does release, it will be a day one launch into Xbox Game Pass for both console and PC. If you're a Kickstarter backer, you will still get your code from that. Do not worry, that is still the case. But if you're someone who bought Hollow Knight on Xbox and you want the sequel, it'll now be in Game Pass, you know, day one, so you won't have to actually pay for it, just outside of your regular membership. You know, I've only put maybe like 10 hours into Hollow Knight. Every time I think to play it, I jump in for like half an hour and then something else pulls me away and I have to go do something else. So, you know, I'm always getting sort of stuck in that loop of you know, cool, I want to play some more and then I never get time to play more. So I'm very, very keen on playing more of it. I just have to find the time for it. Speaking of time, it is time to reclaim what is yours with a new Lord of the Rings game. Lord of the Rings Return to Moria is not a game that you're expecting, I guarantee it. This is a survival game. So after the war with Frodo and the Ring and Sauron and all that, after the world has sort of come back to a sense of normalcy, the dwarves return to Moria. So Moria, as you know, if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, I probably do not need to explain it to you. If you're a Lord of the Rings, you know, fair weather fan, so you watch the movies, but that's all you really have seen of it. Moria is the mine where they sneak through or attempt to sneak through after they realize they can't go over the mountains. So they go into the mine. It's the one with the door with the glowing runes on the outside, where Pippin knocks a set of armor down a well. That then triggers a battle. The noise from the battle calls the Balrog. The Balrog chases after them, and Gandalf basically sacrifices himself in order to, you know, defeat the Balrog and give the rest of the Fellowship a chance to move on. Return to Moria is a survival game, so very much like, you know, I hate to say it, but, you know, kind of like a Minecrafty sort of thing. Valheim is probably another, you know, example of this. V Rising is a very popular one at the moment. But other than, you know, while they're all set in their own original worlds, this one is set within the world of Lord of the Rings. So this is a full experience for Lord of the Rings fans who like the survival genre. We don't know when it's going to come out yet. They've not given that information, but it is coming to PC. The actual reveal was during the Epic Games Store showcase, because they had to have their own showcase, because Steam have their own thing, so Epic had to have their own thing. But yeah, it is a full thing. You can see them, they're building houses and everything. Much like every one of these games that have been announced, there was like 6 of them shown off in the last week. You can't just build and survive. You know, the orcs and that still linger around in the shadows, so there will be combat. You know, so it looks cool. I'm very much a fan of these survival sort of games. The problem is they all tend to be very similar in their approach, in that they'll say it's, you know, it'll release into early access, it'll do this one thing, and it'll do it somewhat okay. But it'll be like, oh yeah, but come back in 6 months when we've got more content to show you. That's when it's really going to be good. You know, it's like, cool, that's fine, but it's not really what was promised. So I'm cautiously optimistic on this one. It could be very, very cool. You know, the fact that this is the first time we've ever had a game in Lord of the Rings where you're not being forced down a story path. So Lord of the Rings Gollum is out on September 1st for most platforms. Switch is coming later in the year. That is, a narrative-driven game where you're playing through as Gollum, I suppose, and to an extent Smeagol, to, sort of not play through the events of the movies or the books, but it's like the time in between all that. So there's that stuff. We've had the EA Lord of the Rings games that came out with the movies, which were adaptations of the movies. There was a Sierra game for The Hobbit and the Fellowship of the Ring, but they were based more on the books. We've had the Shadow of Mordor series, Shadow of War in that, from Monolith Productions. They're now working on a Wonder Woman game. So there's been a lot of things over the years where we've had games set within the world of Lord of the Rings, but they've always been, focused on, you achieving a particular story beat. The Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War series, they're probably the most open compared to the rest of them, but even still, they were very much going from point A to point B to achieve a thing. So this is the first sort of open world-ish exploration-free game. It just happens to be in a mine. Before I move on, there's two more big stories that I want to go to. As I said last week, this is going to be a bit of a longer show because of the pure number of things. Even going through, I had a whole bunch of things open to show, and I've been closing them and going, we don't even have time for that one. And it'd be cool, but there's other things I want to talk about. So there were a lot of showcases over the past week. So if we go in order, stretching here, but the PlayStation State of Play was Friday a week ago. Was 2 weeks ago actually now. It had a bunch of stuff in it. Then over the next sort of 5 days was Netflix Geeked Week, where we got our first look at Cyberpunk Edge Runners, the news that Dragon Age is getting a show, the Devolver Digital are bringing some games to Netflix mobile, so Terra Nil and Poinpy and a few others was all coming as well. So that was very, very cool. Then we had the Epic Game Store showcase, the Upload VR showcase, the Wholesale Games showcase, Guerrilla Collective showcase. There were 2 of those. PC Gaming Show, Future Games showcase, the Xbox and Bethesda Games showcase, the Capcom showcase, and there was something else that I'm missing. There was another one in there. I have to look it up because it's going to drive me insane if I don't bring it up. Limited run games, that's what it was. There's also Summer Game Fest, completely forgot about that one, and Day of the Devs plus Devolver Digital. So there was a lot of stuff shown off in the past week. As I said, there's still more to come. So there's the Nacon Connect is this week coming, I think. I'm going to have to double check that one. Annapurna Interactive has one as well. Let me check. Sorry, not Nacon's this week. This week is Focus Entertainment, where we will get the release date for A Plague Tale Requiem. So that is coming this week. Nacon, I think, is the week after. So many stories. I'm just trying to find the right one. So yeah, Nacon connects there. There's Annapurna. So Focus Entertainment is happening on June 24th. So this coming week. It is going to be 2 a.m. So it's going to be a very early one if you're up for watching that one. Nacon Connect is July 8th, and that's at 3 a.m. So another early one. And then Annapurna Interactive is hosting theirs on July 29th at 5 a.m. So it's not horrible, but it's not ideal. And then there's the THQ Nordic Digital Showcase in August, on August 12th at 5 p.m. So that's a very, very reasonable one for us. So there is a lot happening in terms of showcases. It is just that time of year, unfortunately, where everyone has to show things off, to sort of set up their next 12 to 9 months. And get their investors excited and say, hey, this is why you should come give us money. That being said, the Wholesome Direct is the one that I chose to showcase this year. So last year we did the Guerrilla Collective showcase, where there was some like 97 games or something shown off. on each stream. It was ridiculously loaded. This year they tempered things down a little bit. They did about 60 in overall. Unfortunately, their streams tend to go for about 3 hours, and they just run over. They just keep talking about things. So, you get 2 minutes of gameplay, but then you get like 2 minutes of conversation about the gameplay you just saw. So it's very, very, round table-y more than anything. But the Wholesome Games Showcase, or the Wholesome Direct as they call it, as I said when I first talked about it, it's games that make you sort of go, aww. So there's no bullet sponge games here. There's no, devious puzzle games that are designed to frustrate players. These are games that are simple in that they're not super necessarily super cute, but they're games that are open to everyone. Maybe not because of their gameplay. Some games require a bit more dexterity than others, but they're not excluding players out if you've never played a game before. So I put this list here in order for it. So this is literally the order that everything is coming in. So the Last Clock Winder is out for PC and VR. Princess Farmer's out. So most of these are all out now. Skatebird's been out for a while, but it's a big update that came out as part of it. Freshly Frosted is a puzzle game. That's out now on Xbox and PC. With You is a free game available as well. Seal World Garden of Sea. So there's a bunch of stuff that's now. Lumberjack, Shadow dropped that day for all platforms. So that was announced earlier in the year as coming sometime in the winter months, but it launched during the show. And then the 100 Year Kingdom also dropped on the same day. And then if you have a play date, if you're one of those people, there's another game added for play date. We'll scroll down. So now we're in the section that it's all about games sort of that are coming later in the year. So they may not have a specific date yet, but they've got a window. It's usually Q2 or Q3. So the Calico update that actually launched today. So that's they said it was coming soon, but it actually came sooner than expected. We Are OFK. We saw that in the Nintendo Indie World thing recently. Toads, it's a puzzler. Wandering Village. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in it. But the reason why I wanted to show this list off, and I will throw it in the chat here, is that it is literally games designed to make you not think that they're easy, right? Lemon Cake, I'll play this trailer. It looks very, very cool, but you're running your own bakery, so there's a lot of time management stuff, right? So you've got to do, as you see here, you've got to do the baking. But you've got to bake things for people that they order. So you can't just have, 50 eclairs sitting on a shelf. You have to bake the eclair when somebody orders it. So you've got to stay on top of the orders to make sure that you're getting everything, that people want when they want it and all that sort of stuff. So it's very much one of those sort of games that's about that time management. It just happens to be wrapped in a very cute, layer of things. So, I said it does look very, very cool. It's one of those things that some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it. So, but again, it's one of those things where, just because it looks peaceful and it looks calm, doesn't necessarily mean it is going to be that way. There was another game. It was down. Ooblets is one. Potion Permit, there we are. So Potion Permit. So it, like a lot of games these days, is using the old, sprite-based art. If you look at this, you look at it and go, oh, that doesn't look that appealing. It's all, falling apart and everything. But the actual gameplay is what makes this one wholesome. So you're a potioneer, you have to go and collect the ingredients to make potions so you can heal people. A lot of these trailers are unfortunately very, very short. They did pack 94 titles into, a 1.5 or 1 hour 40-minute showcase. So these are all now, we're into the game's dated for 2022, but haven't actually got a window beyond that. Lonesome Village looks very, very nice. And it looks very much like Legend of Zelda, like the old school SNES Zelda game. Not right now, obviously, because it's, an animation thing, but, it's a top-down thing. So it has sort of that Zelda art style, Zelda gameplay aesthetic, but there's no combat. So it's a game where you're exploring, you're doing things, but there's no combat. So it's sort of subverting expectations there. But this is why it's in the Wholesome Direct, is because it's not a game where you have to worry about beating on 50, 60 enemies to do something. But that's sort of, you look at it and you think that's what you'd have to do, but no, there's none of that in here at all. So if we go down the list, Terra Nil, I cannot wait for this game. I played it last year, loved it, keep playing it over and over again now in the demo. And then we're just getting into a whole lot of things. Coffee Talk 2, Hibiscus and Butterflies coming. Bubblegum Galaxy looks weird. Katori Academy. So, I have put the story link in the chat there. It's definitely worth checking out because, as I said, it does look fantastic. The last game I want to talk about is Starfield. Obviously, you could watch the gameplay trailer and see things for yourself, but there's a few things that I wanted to highlight that I think is very, very cool for this. So obviously, Starfield was meant to release on November 11th this year. It did get delayed alongside Redfall to sometime 2023. As this was included in the games, Xbox and Bethesda Games Showcase, where they said everything was, going to be played within the next 12 months. It should come out sometime before, say June 30, to give them, halfway through next year. There's no word that that's accurate at this point. They may say we're going to release it in say May, but then they may opt to delay it to give them a few extra months if they need to. Based on the size of the game, I think it's very, very possible that they will delay it. One of the big things, obviously, is they did drop a gameplay thing. I won't play it because it is something to sort of see for yourself in your own leisure. But the things that I sort of want to point out, so this is the city of New Atlantis. It's the largest city that Bethesda's ever made for a game, which, when you consider the size of places like Solitude in Skyrim, Megaton in Fallout 3, the various sort of towns, what's the one from Fallout 4? It's the one inside the baseball stadium. I can't think what they call it. They're not small, but this is apparently much, much, much bigger. But that plays into the size of the game. There are 100-star systems, and across those 100 systems, there are, over 1,000 planets. So, in terms of story, they estimate somewhere between 30 to 40 hours to play through the story, and that's if you're just focused on story. The other thing that they've sort of highlighting is that the size of the game is, say 70% procedurally generated. So planets will have things on them that were never placed there by a human hand, very much like Starfield. No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky doesn't place things on planets. It's all done by the game. As you venture off, it creates new planets for you to land on and explore. So it's very much a similar system. What intrigues me, though, is that you can set up outposts very similar to the camp system from Fallout 76 and Fallout 4. It looks a little neat here, but you can set up outposts on planets and moons, whether they be rich in resources or scarce. That's up to you. But you can actually then hire people to do things. So instead of you just building up a giant workshop, for your power suit armor in Fallout 4, then having to run back and forth every time you wanted to do something, you can actually hire somebody to do the maintenance for you. Which I think is very, very cool, especially because that makes it sound, the game, Todd Howard made it sound like you can actually have more than one outpost. You can have multiple. So you could technically have an outpost on one end of the galaxy, another in the middle, another on the far end, right? So depending on where you are, you don't have to travel all the way back across the galaxy. Ship-to-ship combat is a thing. I'm a big fan of the old Rogue Squadron games, the Star Wars Rogue Squadron games. So I grew up playing those. I'm very, very keen to see how all this plays out going forward. How it plays out is going to be the big question, because it's one of those things where if it doesn't play smoothly, it's going to annoy a lot of people. The other thing too is this is not open world. So No Man's Sky is what you would consider open world because, I can run from one half of the planet to the other, get in my ship, take off, fly into space, warp to another sector, fly to a planet, land on it, get off and run to the other half of the planet, right? All without a single load screen. This has been confirmed that, yes, while you're on the planet, there's no load screens unless you go into, say, buildings or whatever. While you're in space, there's no load screens. You can fly around and do whatever. But going between space and planets, there will be load screens, which I'm okay with. I don't get this whole appeal about everything has to be open world, has to be seamless. It's like, no. Load screens are fine. Load screens that take, 4 or 5 minutes are not. But, a 20-second, 30-second load screen, for every 2 hours of gameplay you get, that's fine. There's not an issue with that. But the whole procedurally generated thing with all the planets, I've seen people going, just imagine all the testers that have to go through. It's just like, yeah, but they're not going to be testing all the planets. They're going to be testing the systems that generate things on the planets. Is this system generating, walls correctly? It's not putting them halfway through rocks or through other objects, right? Stuff like that. So the procedurally generated stuff, it interests me mostly because they may have a planet that is now resource rich, but there's nothing on it that anyone from Bethesda Game Studios has developed. But they could do expansion at the end of next year or 6 months after the game comes out, where they take that planet and then they crack it open and find a resource, a base that somebody built in into the planet's core or something. So that was the thing that Skyrim and all the other sort of games they've done. They did it in Fallout 4 with you went off to like sort of the swamp up north. I can't think of what it was called now. I think it was Pier something. Fallout 3 did it. They took you off to Pittsburgh. Skyrim did it. They took you off to the island, off to the top right. Starts with an M. Oblivion did it as well. You went to like Sheer-Gorath's palace or whatever. So they've always done these DLCs where there's new landmasses, but these new landmasses are never connected to the main game. You can't just see them from where you are. You can't just travel to them from where you are. You always have to go to specific locations. So the size of this game means that 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 2 years from now, they could drop an update that just says, cool, here's an undiscovered civilization on this planet that maybe 2 people had ever actually been to, right? So it just gives them so much more room to explore and expand once the game is out. Obviously, I'm not saying that is what they're going to do, but it does look like something they could do. In the actual gameplay trailer, I do chuckle because I spotted it the other day. Alpha Centauri, it's a well-known thing, well-known constellation for things. Sol, if you have anything to do with Mars, if you're into the colonization of Mars, Sol is a very big thing because Mars essentially takes twice as long to get around the sun as what we do. So 1 Earth day is the equivalent, 2 Mars days or 2 Sol days is the equivalent of 1 Earth day. So they use Sol for that context. But I laughed, when I saw Cheyenne. Obviously it's Native American. The big thing that, if you're a science fiction fan, you'll notice Cheyenne Mountain, which is the home of NORAD, which is the home of deep space telemetry for the United States government, and sort of, missile detection. But in Stargate, Cheyenne Mountain is where, SG-1, and all the SG teams, the Stargate program runs out of, and they deal with Jaffa. Both these are not, Stargate original things. Volley is somewhat connected to a Stargate thing. Somebody pointed that out to me yesterday as well. So it could be very much related to it. But I just think with everything that the game showed off, the combat seems a little, depending on the skills that you go for. I'm so optimistic for this one because the fact that they delayed it, right? Skyrim locked in an 11/11/11 release date, and I think they forced themselves to hit it because they knew they had to for the marketing. It was just such a cool thing to do it. With Starfield, they said 11/11, And while it would have been cool to stick to it, I think with the release of Fallout 76 and how badly that launched, the release of Elder Scrolls Online and how badly that launched, and even Fallout 4 launched with some pretty big issues. I think they've sort of realized now, hey, look, it's okay if we delay a game, right? Anyone who plays Bethesda Game Studios title knows that when a game releases from them, it's going to be buggy, right? There's going to be issues. Sometimes it's just because of the sheer size of the world or the systems that the world is trying to maintain while it does things, while the player does things. Sometimes it's just because it's just bugs, right? But I think they've finally realized that, hey, they can now delay these games. Whether or not this is something that Xbox has pushed into their heads to say, look, no, you can delay games, that's fine. Which is why, both this and Redfall delayed. We will never know that. But I'm happy that they're taking the time, purely because it seems like their ambition for this one is far beyond anything we've seen before. We do know, if we're talking about the future of things, we know pre-production on Elder Scrolls 6 is happening. So once this ships, apart from any post-release content and fixes that they develop, the majority of the Bethesda Game Studios team will move on to Fallout, to Elder Scrolls 6. And then once Elder Scrolls 6 is out the door, Todd Howard has confirmed that Fallout 5 will be their next game. So what is interesting is there are actually 3 studios now for Bethesda Game Studios. So Bethesda, as a company, owns Tango Gameworks, id Software, ZeniMax Online Studios, who do Elder Scrolls Online, Alpha Dog Games, Wolfenstein Games, Machine Games, the people who make the Wolfenstein games, and then doing Indiana Jones. So they do a lot of stuff for those. The big appeal for Bethesda Game Studios is they used to just be one team in Maryland, out near Bethesda, which is where they got their name from. But then they started up BGS, or Bethesda Game Studios Montreal, a couple of years ago, and then they started up one in Texas, in Austin. So there's actually 3. So the Austin team is doing the development for Fallout 76, so that's what they focus on. But then Montreal is essentially a sister studio for Bethesda mainland, or Bethesda Maryland, sorry. So lead development is done by BGS in the USA, and then Montreal up in Canada does support work and other things. So it's entirely possible that once Starfield releases, Montreal will pick up the post-release content and fixes, and then BGS original will move on to Elder Scrolls 6, or Elder Scrolls 6 pre-production could be happening in Montreal, right? We honestly don't know. There's just so much more that we have to wait and see on. But as I said, I'm very, very optimistic for Starfield. I've been a fan of the Bethesda games since Oblivion. Morrowind just never appealed to me. It seemed a bit too pen and papery back in the day. They sort of corrected that with Oblivion, and even that took me a few attempts to get into. I remember I got that day one with my Xbox 360 when that launched here in Australia. Oblivion launched alongside it here. And I remember, it came in the cardboard sleeve and had the coin and all that sort of stuff. And I played it for about, 10 hours. And I'm like, this doesn't really appeal to me. So, I moved on to other things. Came back to it a few weeks later. It still didn't sort of appeal to me. So I got rid of the game because I'm like, this is obviously not for me. And then 6 months later, I bought it again because there was nothing out. Because this is back when games were not releasing, every week. There wasn't a major release. And I needed something to play, and I thought, well, I'll give this a go again. And then, that was the first time I ever lost track of time playing a game. I'm always very cautious of my time. I always make sure I stand up, after an hour and stretch and, look away from the screens. But it was 10 o'clock at night. I jumped into Oblivion. I was going to do 2 things that I need to do. One, I had to get some herbs for something, and I was going to do a quest for some guy in Braville. And then, that was 10:30. I'd just finished work. And then I finished off the quest. I looked at the clock and it said 3:15 in the morning. So I'd lost 4.5 hours of my life to the game. And I don't even recall the time passing. I just, remember going, I'm going to do one mission or one quest. And then boom, 4 hours later, I'm like, I've done that one quest. it just, it kept going. So, it was very, very, very cool. So I'm very excited for Starfield, and I hope this plays out better, than Fallout 4. Fallout 4 was good, but I just had some issues with that one. So hopefully this one fixes most of those concerns. Right, that is done. We are done for all the news of the week. As I said, there was a lot more that we could have talked about because there was just so much stuff in there, but we won't. What we will do, however, is go through the forecast for the next 7 days so we can get an idea of what is to come. Obviously, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, sort of shadow dropped during the week. It wasn't planned originally. It was on one of those last minute inclusions. Same with Neon White. They both released yesterday. So things like that happen. If there is a Nintendo Direct later in this month, we could have 7 games released out of nowhere on that one day that we don't know about today. So this is the list as of today for the next 7 days, and that is on June 21st. There is a big one. So Fall Guys is coming finally to Switch and Xbox, and on the same day it is launching on Steam. It is currently only available. It's currently only available on Steam. It's launching on Epic Games Store. The catch for the PC players is if you have it on Steam, that is the paid version of the game. If you want to have it on Epic, that'll be the free-to-play version of the game. Once it goes free-to-play, that version of the game will no longer be available. Any version of the game will no longer be available on Steam to buy. But if you own it, you can keep re-downloading it, as often as you'd like. It is also, coming to PlayStation 5 on that day. The PS4 version works on PlayStation 5, but is not optimized for it. And as I said, Fall Guys is going free to play on that day because it is an Epic Games Store game, and they do it free to play because they're weird like that. But that's one thing to look forward to on the 21st. Also, if you're on Switch, Wreckfest is finally coming to the platform. THQ Nordic released a trailer a few weeks ago for that one, and it looks a lot better than I thought it was going to. Let me see if I can find the footage on it. It's a racing game where destruction it's not key, but it's a big focus of it. I'll post the story here in the chat for Wreckfest. It looks a lot better than I was expecting it to. Given that on Xbox One when it first launched, it didn't look that great, didn't run all that well, but they seem to have taken the time, because this was supposed to release last year, but they gave themselves like an extra 6 months, and they finally got it coming out, looking pretty well. How it shakes out once there's all the cars bashing in all the time, we'll have to wait and see. But in the footage in that story, it looks pretty good. Also on the 21st is the Shadowrun trilogy coming to all consoles, so that's Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S. The games will be available to get independently, or you can buy them at a discounted rate in the bundle, which is why it's the trilogy. The Shadowrun games are isometric, sort of stealthy shooters. I haven't seen anything on Shadowrun since the PC Xbox 360 game. So it's been a while for that. These are not new. These are remasters of older games coming to the consoles. So that's that. On the 23rd of June will be Sonic Origins for PC, Switch, PS4, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, and PS5. These are the original Sonic games. Not exactly remastered for modern platforms. You will be able to play the originals, but there'll be a sort of slightly modified version of them as well, to take some advantage of it. There was things like music and history, like any sort of modern day collection of games that comes with it. That is there. There are weird things. If you buy like a digital deluxe version of it, you get some additional things you can't get otherwise. So that's something to sort of pay attention to. On the 24th of June, so a day later, so next Friday, will be AI The Somnium Files Nirvana. If you're in the US, it is a Switch game, so you can get it here if you want. It is on PS4 as well and PC. And then Capcom Fighting Collection is coming to all platforms as well on that day. That is literally exactly what it sounds like. It is a collection of Capcom fighting games. This will be the first time, though, that some of these games have released outside of Japan, and for one of them, it's the first time it's released outside of the arcade. So this is going to be definitely one to look for next week. Also on the 24th, as I said, is Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes. It is a sequel to Fire Emblem Three Houses, which was the traditional Fire Emblem game that released in the first year of the Switch's lifespan. This is the Warriors subset of that, and the Warriors obviously is a Musou type where it's you versus 800, 900 enemies. So that's something to look forward to as well. The only other real thing is, say, Zoro the Chronicles launched today. It's a Zoro game. It's a very average-looking Zoro game, but it's a Zoro game. But Lego Brawls is apparently supposed to release sometime this month, but we don't have a date for that yet, so we have to wait and see. Whew. And with that brings us to the end of the show. So that is it's going to be a big one because it's just so much news. We should be fairly quiet next week, so there's not a lot expected outside of the Focus Showcase. We will be back live on Tuesday for another episode of the James Bond series of games, where we should finally get through the last few missions of From Russia with Love. Obviously there's been a few misses on that over the past few weeks for various reasons. We also will be back next Friday for another episode of the Maxi-Geek Show. Both the Games Bond stream and the Maxi-Geek Show start at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. We also will be starting up Sunday streams, not this week coming, but the one after. We'll be doing Sunday night sessions for that, where we'll just be playing random games. So it's not going to be a series. We're not going to be playing the same game every week. We might play Minecraft one week. We might play Overwatch the next. Probably won't play Overwatch, but you get what I mean. Beyond that, though, there'll be more details for that released over the next week or so as we get closer to the launch of that one. But until then, please enjoy whatever you happen to be playing, and until see you online next time, happy gaming.